Hey, and welcome to part 2 of the Q&A. If you've missed part 1, please go back, links in the description, and go and watch that. If not, please enjoy. Question number 5. Should I find co-founders for my startup or
do it myself?
This one is a bit of a blend, I would say. You can definitely do it by yourself, but I wouldn't advise it. I've found having a co-founder one of the most important parts of running a business, both from the technicality of having a co-founder and what they bring to the table from an experience perspective, but also from a knowledge perspective. To give you some context, I bring the industry expertise into Ember. I am a chartered accountant and bring all of that great boring accounting knowledge, whereas Aaron is a technical co-founder and he brings all of the technical understanding. So if you're building a technology product, I would 100% say that you need a co-founder who is technical, or you are building something else that you just have complete domain knowledge of, then you can do it yourself. But I would say it's tricky. I think there are points in time when you really need someone to lean on, and it's not an easy thing to do, start a business. So what I would say is that that person who you are co-founders with, you can rely on, and it's really important to find the right person. And that means that it can't necessarily be somebody you're best mates with. For example, Aaron and myself didn't know each other really before going into business. We knew each other for maybe about a month, and that dynamic worked out super well because we both challenge each other. We both understand that we're not yes people, and that means that what you can do is push the business forward in a way that actually matters, compared to if you were both yes people and you just do what the other thinks is good. So what I would say is to challenge each other and definitely try and find that co-founder, because you need someone to lean on throughout that entire process. And you can't do it all yourself in certain circumstances. So I would definitely say it's advantageous, not impossible to do without. There are plenty of examples where people have done this and they've shown such huge leadership and those qualities that you do need as a business owner. But what we have found as super compelling is having that person to really lean on and have those ideas, because as a founder of a business, feedback is essential. That's not just feedback from those who work for you, but feedback from your peers. And if you don't have a co-founder, you don't have the ability to have feedback from peers unless you have a good advisor who you can get feedback from, and that is also advised. But super essential to have that person who can always tell you and keep you in check about whether you're doing things right or what you could do better. Question number 6. Here we go. All at once. Not all at once. How do I find investors for my startup? Interesting. So this is a good question, a tricky question to answer, because there are so many different resources that you can use for this. One of the most important ones that we've used over our time is known as the RLC Ventures list. It's essentially a list that breaks out all of the different VCs, angels, SCIS funds, EIS funds into a nice little table that you can search and get the contact details for. We'll put that in the link because you definitely should check that out if you're looking to raise. What I would say is part of your role as a founder of a business is very salesy. What you need to be able to do is actually hunt down the people that you know invest in your space, invest in similar businesses to you in other markets potentially, or in other geographies, who know you're not coming to the geography that you operate in. That's a really useful one to do. That's essentially how we've actually raised our next round, which is a really interesting one. And what I would say is then tracking down those people on LinkedIn and making sure that you then connect with them, getting those conversations in early rather than waiting until the point in which you actually need to raise money. So start thinking about this from the get-go and start talking to those bigger investors earlier on as well. The likes of, say, Series A investors won't be investing in a seed round, but what you want to do is essentially build that relationship with them and make sure that when you are ready to do your Series A, do you have a whole bank of people to come into and get in contact with. We have a centralized investor CRM where we actually move that through the pipeline of a sales process. So you can really think about funding as a bit of a sales process, and you just get in touch with all of these investors and continue to learn and iterate from the feedback that they give you as well. So that's one of the most important parts about raising money, to make sure that you get the feedback early on from those investors and then change your pitch after that. Change your pitch after the next round of feedback, and then at the end you've just got a beautiful synchronized pitch that you can take out to investment, and Bob's your uncle. Pregunta número 6? Maria's gonna hate me for that one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah.
Is it Siete or Siete?
Siete, maybe? Or is that Italian? I don't know.
Maria's gonna hate me for that.
This is horrible. I'm sorry, Maria. Question number 7 in English. How do you retain your employees at your startup? Good question. I feel like hiring and retaining your employees is essential to running a successful business. What you need to know when you're doing this is that every single employee of your business needs to feel like they are a part of something bigger than themselves. And by doing that, what you're doing is actually setting the vision and mission of that business. And that needs to be started from the very get-go. You need to understand what it is you're trying to achieve and make sure that it's as lofty as possible so that you're continuing to strive and making sure that everybody is moving in the same direction. There's a whole load of different methods in which you can do to make sure that everybody is moving in the same direction. There's a framework called the OKR framework, which is the Objectives and Key Results framework, where every single employee has a key result that they are trying to meet, which feeds up into those overarching objectives, which helps you meet that end vision and mission. And that is something that helps galvanize everybody and helps make sure that you're not just going to work to be paid, and you're going to work for a reason. And that is by getting towards that vision and mission. It's one of the core parts of making sure that you do retain good talent. Another part that feeds into this is obviously the remuneration. It's how much you pay your people and making sure that you do pay above market rate. I know it's hard, it's a balancing act as a startup. You are continually working out what you should allocate your capital towards, whether that's marketing, whether that's product, whether that's people, whether that's operations, whether that's offsites. The list goes on, and you are just continually working out where your money is best spent. But at the end of the day, you are running a business that is run by people, and you need to make sure that those people are incentivized properly so that they are going to look elsewhere and they are going to look to move on. Question number 8. Should I do an accelerator for my business? That is a good question, because in my opinion, it can be sometimes disadvantageous to do an accelerator for your business. And this might be a little bit controversial in saying this, but in my opinion, some accelerators don't necessarily give you what you're after. Some of them do waste time in certain areas, whether that is that you already have a good understanding of what product market fit is, of what you need to do in order to start your business, how you need to incorporate your company. There is obviously a lot to learn, and there is a lot of material online that you can consume to learn this. And sometimes you don't necessarily need to do an accelerator to have that base understanding. But there are circumstances in which an accelerator can be useful. That is by understanding then what it is you want out of it. So what I would say is at the start of running a company or going into starting a business, you need to make sure that you have an understanding of where your gaps lie and what you essentially want to know or want to learn and want to get out of an accelerator. So that could be something like going for an accelerator who could be a potential partner down the line. So banks, for instance, could provide a really essential sort of partnership for your route to market, something like the NatWest Accelerator or the Barclays Techstars. And there are really sort of interesting ones from that perspective, but you really need to go in making sure that you have the objectives and you know exactly what you want to get out of it. Otherwise, it can be a little bit of a waste of time sometimes. The other real important one is if, say, you don't have a co-founder and you want to try and meet somebody with the same sort of mindset who wants to go into business, who doesn't necessarily have that idea. So that could be sort of pre-ideation stage or at ideation stage, and you're really trying to look for someone. I know Antler do some really cool stuff on that. So going in and essentially trying to find, say, a technical co-founder or like an operational co-founder or an industry-based co-founder could be a really interesting way of using an accelerator as well. So choose carefully and make sure that you're getting something out of it at the end of the day, because they can sometimes be a time sink, but they can also be useful. So do with that what you may. Bonus round. I feel like there's bloody never-ending copy. All right, bonus round. Ooh. Should I have advisors for my startup? Ooh. Okay, now we're getting juicy. It depends. There is some uses for advisors, and what I would say is that you really need to be careful in those that you do choose who you want to be your advisors. What you want to ensure is that whoever you bring on board doesn't just talk the talk, but also walks the walk. So there are a few ways in which you can go about it. You can pay somebody for their consulting, so you can essentially get somebody on as a consultant and have a bit of a try before you buy type scenario, where you understand that the value of what you're going to get out of, say, that advisor is to the level of what you need. Or sometimes you can go in and try and offer them equity as well. But what I would say with this is please tread carefully, because some of them can, as I said, come and promise the world in terms of advice and what you actually get out of that relationship, and then at the end of the day not necessarily deliver. So make sure that whenever you do go into these advice relationships, it is with people who have been there and done that before. So a lot of founders are quite good advisors and really good people to lean on. A lot of, say, expertise that you find complementary to your own. So for instance, if, say, you don't have the best sales expertise, you go and get a sales advisor, and we have an amazing sales advisor, I will say. What you really need to do then is make sure that whatever you do is get the most out of that relationship. So really hone in on having somebody who you can rely on and make sure that they also give you great advice at the end of the day. And that's constant advice, and it's not necessarily something that they're just in it for either the money, but they are in it for the longer haul and wanting to try and push you forward as a business.
I think we're going to show the camera. The Zoom is an empty cup.
Nope.
I believe that means we're done.
We're done. Final comments. I hope you've enjoyed this today and hope you've learned something out of it. I know there is a lot of nugs in there that you could potentially get out of that I wish I had when I was starting the business. And what I'll try to be is always straight with you and ensure that you guys have the best answers to any of the questions that you ask. So make sure you please ask us anything that you want to know about starting a business, or you're not yet going into a business, or you're thinking about going into a business. Please ask us any questions and we will answer them in future takes. So thank you very much for your time. See you next time. Now all my people win. Now all my people win. Now all my people win. Won't you listen, come again? Now all my people win. All my people win. Now all my people win. Won't you listen?